All right, so I'm going to try to shut the door, but I'm sure I won't have the people sneaking in. Renee sent out a thing that after 5 minutes. Oh, okay. All right, so apparently Renee set a cutoff. Okay. All right, so somebody, I won't name names, but somebody who came in pointed out to me the picture and said that if I'm going to have that picture up, that's what they're going to go eat, because the justification is they just did spin, so they feel like that's the reward. So, but that's a very timely thing to say, because that's very much an emotional eating symptom, if you will. All right, some things to think about. You do not need to answer this. You can just kind of keep it to yourselves. But some symptoms of having an unhealthy relationship with food. Now, when I ask you these things, these are things that you do when you're not hungry. Yeah. So you need to think about it in terms of eating when you're not hungry. So, are you eating out of boredom? Are you eating because it's a special occasion or there's certain friends or family around? Again, this is when you're not hungry. Are you eating out of sadness? Are you feeling stressed or anxious? Are you craving specific foods or food combinations? Do you spend more time thinking about food than other people do? Or at least from what you perceive. You never know what other people are thinking. But do you feel ashamed of the quantity of food that you eat? Do you feel like you have to clean your plate? As a result of not planning ahead, do you feel like you're making poor food choices? Do you often seek comfort foods? Do you eat in an attempt to boost energy? What about not paying attention to what you're eating? Eating because everyone else is, and because you don't know when you're full. So these are all symptoms of a poor relationship with food. And here's a little comic strip, if you will. I'm not eating, I'm massaging emotional stress. And it looks to be that she has some cake and maybe a plate of cookies there. All right, course outcomes for this morning. You should be able to list at least one appropriate alternative to making undesirable food choices. List at least one question you might ask yourself during a craving or during emotional eating. List and explain the 5 Ds, and list at least one way to practice mindful eating. And again, this is just to give you some direction with what we're going to talk about today. All right, what is emotional eating? Emotional eating is a response to feelings rather than physical hunger. So there's a difference. Habit prevents us from learning appropriate coping skills. So if every time you feel sad, I'll use chocolate cake throughout the presentation. If every time you feel sad, you reach for a piece of chocolate cake, that's a habit every single time. That's a habit. Emotional eating can be used as a distraction. If you've got a million chores you've got to take care of at home, I'm going to eat a piece of cake instead. I don't feel like doing that right now. It could start in childhood, and I think for a lot of us it does start in childhood. If every time you fall and scrape your knee as a kid, your mother gives you that chocolate cake, every time you fall and scrape your knee or something like it, when you're older, you're going to want that cake or something like it. Of course, emotional eating leads to weight gain and increases the likelihood for related diseases. All right, the difference between emotional eating and hunger. Emotional eating comes on suddenly versus gradually. It's just like a switch comes on. Oh my gosh, I need something. I need this right now. Whereas hunger is like, oh, I'm starting to feel hungry. Probably about a half hour from now, I'm going to be starving. There's a difference there. You might be craving a specific food versus being open to options. I've got to have that chocolate cake right now. Versus hunger might be, let's see, what should I have for lunch today? Should I have a salad? Should I have chicken? You're open to options. It's a need for immediate satisfaction versus the ability to wait. Again, I've got to have it right now, within the next 2 minutes. I've got to be eating it. versus, I've got a half hour till lunch break, I'll make it. It's also eating past the feeling of being full versus stopping when you're satisfied. So is emotional eating bad? Always bad. It's not always bad. When it becomes a problem is when it becomes a habit. Again, every time you scrape your knee, you want the chocolate cake. I'll just kind of use that as an example. How can you stop? Creating awareness. Some triggers for emotional eating, and this is not an all-inclusive list, but most of them should be somewhat familiar. Depression, anxiety, health conditions, work, unemployment, weather. I mean, some of us just, look at it outside. So that affects me. I don't know about you. Okay, poor self-esteem, finances, loneliness, boredom, fatigue, frustration, stress, anger, and relationships. And again, the list can go on for some of us. All right, so here's where your food journal becomes important. One of the best ways to identify what your triggers are is to keep a journal. You want to identify patterns. Are you doing this at the same time every single day? Are you at 2 p.m. every single day, do you want that piece of chocolate cake? Identify when it's happening. Identify more appropriate choices to managing your emotions in place of eating. What can I do when I'm feeling like this, when I'm feeling angry, or when I'm feeling sad at 2 o'clock in the afternoon? What can I do? Can I go take a walk around the office building or outside or something? And again, keeping it in your food diary can be helpful. Again, the food diaries and your food journals, they're not just for recording your food. You may want to use those to put down what you're feeling at the times that you're eating. Here's an example. At breakfast, this person ate at 7 a.m. They had a relatively balanced meal. They had some oatmeal with peanut butter, flax and skim milk. They said they had a good night's sleep and they were feeling good. Okay, great. Lunch comes around noon. They had to skip it. They had to meet a deadline and they were feeling stressed. 2 o'clock rolls around. They had 2 candy bars. They were starving. They were stressed. They had no time to heat up their lunch. Okay? So again, writing these things down in your journal can help. And maybe you already know this is happening, but again, seeing it day after day, maybe you look at your journals at the end of the week and you're like, wow, I didn't realize how often this was happening. Other triggers. Knowing your personality type can be helpful. Some of you are social types, so eating in the presence of others. I have one patient that she likes to go out with her husband and another couple on Fridays and Saturdays and it's cocktails. So that's a huge thing for her. That's a huge adjustment that she's had to take on. Maybe you're an emotional eater. Maybe there's a void that you feel that you're trying to fill. Maybe there's someone missing in your life or something missing in your life. Maybe you're a situational eater. Every time you go to work, you pass Dunkin' Donuts, and you just gotta stop there. Thoughts. Maybe you have negative self-thoughts about yourself. Your self-worth is poor, or you like to make up excuses. Well, I can't work out tonight because I'm just not feeling right, or I've got to get the kids here, or whatever. And not that those are always poor excuses, but if it's happening every single day of your life, you need to take a look at that. And then, of course, there are physiological cues. Maybe you truly just are hungry and there's something happening. You're skipping meals or you're not having balanced meals. So maybe you're not so much of an emotional eater, but you take a look at your food journals and notice that your meal plans are unbalanced, and that's your concern. All right, other factors. Memories are a huge factor for emotional eating. We associate foods with past experiences, and those make an impact on today's choices, okay? So again, I'll go back to the scraping the knee thing. Again, if you scraped your knee and you always got chocolate cake when you scraped your knee, that's still the way you want to manage it today. What you want to try to do is experience food in the now. Let healthier present-day thoughts replace unhealthy food experiences and memories. One of the ways you can do that is practice mindful eating. Dedicate uninterrupted time for meals. I know this is difficult. Again, we live in a society, I mean, this is just part of what we do. We're always on the go, we've got things to accomplish, and so we do everything while we're eating, or we're not eating at all. So avoid the internet, avoid the phone, avoid TV, avoid reading while you're eating, at least for 1 meal a day, if you're not doing it at all. Chew your food thoroughly. Pay attention to everything. Pay attention to the sight of food. Even the presentation can create a level of satisfaction. And we don't always pay attention to the sight of food. We see the bag of Cheetos, we just keep eating it, whatever. Taste your food. And this, I mean, some of this might sound silly because it's like, of course I taste my food, but do you really? Are you eating fast and just kind of inhaling the food, or are you actually savoring and really paying attention to how things taste? Texture of food. Some of you might be texture people. I'm a texture person. Thoughts. Again, are you having good thoughts? Are you having negative thoughts? What experience are you having with the food? Aroma. And then, of course, paying attention to your hunger and satiety signals. Are you starting to feel full? Are you starting to feel satisfied? Pay attention to those. Having some inner dialogue. Now, when you're going through emotional eating or you're having a cravings, this is probably the last thing that you want to do. But if you could at least ask yourself one question, it may help. How am I feeling right now? Am I sad? Am I angry? Am I happy? Am I just eating out because I'm happy? Find out why, what's going on. How would I cope with this feeling if the food was unavailable? Okay, I'm feeling really angry right now. I want the chocolate cake. Let's say the chocolate cake is out of the house. You can't get your hands on it. You can't go to the store and go get it. What else would you do? And don't say substitute with something pretty much like it. What needs to change in my life to break this pattern of feeling? I do realize that, you know, some of you may have stress at work that's out of your hands. So that's something that might be out of your control, but at least if you can identify that's what's going on and identify how you're coping with it and then try to come up with better coping methods, that will at least help. I realize that not everything is under your control. And then how is this helping me achieve my goal? If I have this piece of chocolate cake right now, is that really helping me get towards my goal? And maybe you decide, hey, I'm gonna have this. Okay, fine, but realize that it has to fit in with the bigger picture. I want to talk about stress because this is probably the biggest underlier, right, for all of us. Stress changes our genes, it changes our hormones, it causes inflammation, so pain, and it also causes a variety of health issues. Some stress busters. Fresh air and sunshine. You know, if you're a weather type person or if you like the outdoors. Now again, I realize the sun is not out. And maybe you work, you know, maybe your office is closed up and you don't get to see daylight. So maybe you get a 5-minute break and you just go to a window and just look outside, right? Just these little things. Walk on a work break, and that doesn't mean you have to go outside. Maybe you walk around your office building. Or if you're stuck at home with kids, I mean, walk up the steps a couple times, the basement steps. Add plants to your workspace or your home. That can help things feel lively. Sticking to a routine can also be empowering, right? If you put in your calendar every Wednesday at 5 o'clock, I'll just use spin as an example, I'm doing spin. That's in your calendar. Having a routine, having a regimen can be very empowering for people who feel like their lives are a little out of control. Put idle hands to work. Rhythmic movements signal the brain to relax. So things like sketching, knitting, climbing, a lot of those help. Yoga, which we'll actually talk to with the spiritual part. Prayer and meditation can help. Even if it's just 10 minutes by yourself in your room while somebody watches the kids or whatever, that can boost happiness. Visualize a happy place. And I know, again, some of these might sound silly, but 5 minutes, I don't know, close your eyes, visualize that you're on a beach, or I don't know, skiing, or something that you really enjoy doing. Taking a bath can be soothing. Aromatherapy with lavender and jasmine can be helpful. Expressing gratitude. The National Institutes of Health says that more activity in the hypothalamus occurs when you experience gratitude or express gratitude. This is the part of the brain that influences stress. Okay, so telling people, thank you, I appreciate you, doing things for others. And this is a great time of year to do those things too. Expressing gratitude releases dopamine, which is a hormone that helps us to feel good. You can also write your feelings down in the journal. Again, I know, it might seem like, oh, what's that going to do for anything? But getting those feelings out, saying what you're thankful for, even if you can't say it to that person, it can really help. Send notes to your friends and family. Exercise, of course, is a huge one, right? It helps with sleep, which also helps with appetite hormones. It releases endorphins, which probably all of you know by now. It lowers the depression symptoms. It boosts your energy. It can calm you. It can help you focus. Avoid your vices. Remember that while you're eating that piece of chocolate cake, it does provide a moment of satisfaction, but think about the afterwards. Are you going to feel guilty about it? Are you going to feel ashamed about it? Or maybe you won't, but then you realize, oh geez, now I'm on the scale and this is happening. So please know that it also can lead to additional stress and health concerns. Cravings. There's a physiological reason why we have cravings. It's not just, well, it tastes good and I want it. If you eat something that has carbs alone, so bread is a huge one, right? It gives you a temporary quick boost. It does this to your blood sugar and then this to your blood sugar. When you have this, that's when you have cravings, that's when you're lagging in energy, that's when you want more, you don't feel satisfied, okay? When you have something that has sweet plus salt and fat, so think like chocolate-covered pretzels, that stimulates several
Thanks for sharing.
See how you're making that connection? So anyways, when you have those three components, that is stimulating several sensory spots in your brain. Okay, so there's a physiological response going on there. It's not just, oh, I just like it. I mean, there's a response going on in your brain. And then sweet is also preferred from birth, right? Milk is the first thing that we have. Milk has natural sugars in it. We naturally prefer sweets. And that's a good thing until it becomes a habit, right? A poor habit. Cravings stimulate the feel-good endorphins and dopamine. Dopamine, a lot of studies are linking sugar cravings to drug addiction. Now this is all very new things, so we have yet to see what the long-term research is showing, but that's what they're starting to compare it to. The dopamine is similar to a drug addiction. Levels that stay chronically elevated are usually associated with high sugar and fat intake. And again, it becomes an issue when the reward becomes a habit or a response. I do want to talk about sugar substitutes and soda because a lot of you ask me about this. I think just about in every presentation that I do, I get asked about diet soda. So obviously, what we do know is that sugar substitutes and diet sodas offer little to no calories, right? And that means that it can be a part of a balanced diet if it's used in moderation. What I typically recommend is you can do something like a Splenda or a Truvia. However, with emerging research, and again, it's yet to be seen long term, it does say that consuming several servings daily may perpetuate cravings because our brain does not differentiate between sweets that have calories and sweets that don't have calories. So when you have that diet soda, your brain is still having the same response that it would with a regular soda, with regular sugar, okay? So your brain's not saying, oh, well, this is diet, I don't have to act this way. It doesn't know that, okay? And your body has the same response too. Your body is still setting itself up for fat storage because that's what it does when your brain tells it that it's having sweets. So again, we'll see what happens with this long term, but.
So what do you consider moderation?
Okay.
Like 1 soda a day?
You know, if you can, preferably, I would like everybody to wean and just be off it completely. I mean, that's my opinion on it. You know, in moderation, everybody's definition of moderation is different. I mean, some of you are drinking 64 ounces of diet soda a day. Some of you are drinking 1 can, right? So if you can just even wean down or cut down from what you were doing, that would be helpful, okay? Or what I guess what I would really consider moderation to be would be, well, I have an occasional soda. So on a holiday, I might have, you know, a couple sips or 1 can or whatever. Not every day I'm having 2 or 3 cans, okay? So, but again, I do realize that moderation means something very different for each one of you. All right, back to cravings. I do want to talk about management. Now, you kind of have to know yourself. If you're an all or nothing type person, or if you can go somewhere in the middle. It really depends on you. I usually tell people not to deprive themselves. Does anybody know why?
You can't maintain it.
Because you can't. Okay, and we shouldn't say you can't maintain it, but
well, it's very difficult.
Yes, it is difficult. You know, and I will admit to that too. I love chocolate. Tried omitting it from my diet. It's backfired. So you have to know your limits and put a portion control on there. And again, you know, if you swear off chocolate cake or whatever, cake, brownies, whatever, you know, is that realistic when your child graduates high school and wants you to enjoy a piece of their graduation cake? Or, you know, if you go to a wedding and you want to have a piece of cake or whatever. I mean, you know, some of you might be okay with that. I can forgo it. I don't need it, whatever. But some of you really enjoy those things, and that's okay in moderation. Anyways, if you are going to have something that you're craving, try to combine it with a healthful food. So if you really love chocolate, you know, maybe you combine chocolate bits with pieces of fruit or drizzle it over fruit so that you're filling up a little bit on something healthier. Fasting. I'm not a big proponent of fasting, but some of you have done versions of fasting and it has been helpful for getting you off of soda. So I will say that if you're going to do a short-term fast and it's medically supervised, it can be helpful for getting off of cravings. But again, I want you to talk to your doctors if you decide to do something like that, because it's not appropriate for everybody. Gum. Chewing gum can be helpful for some of you who just kind of have that oral thing where you feel like you always have to be chewing or whatever. Distractions. Now, but this is twofold. Distractions might work well, but if you find that you keep distracting yourself, but you just still have that craving going on, like I should have just had that piece of cake because I'm 2 hours later, I'm still in the same spot. You know, you kind of have to weigh out, okay, have a small portion of the cake and just be on with your day. Incorporate small amounts. So kind of like I mentioned with combining the fruit with the chocolate, you know, you can have those things in small amounts throughout the day as opposed to, you know, several big portions. Meal timing is also really important for preventing cravings. You know, like I used with the food diary example, skipping meals. That really sets you up for those cravings, because what happens when you skip meals, your blood sugar drops and then you're like, I'm starving. And then you want something that's going to be quickly digested and that's quickly going to raise your blood sugars, and that's typically carbs, you know, cookies, potato chips, crackers, stuff like that. All right, a couple ideas. If you really enjoy chocolate, try to look for greater than 70% cocoa or cacao, however they pronounce it. If it's greater than 70%, it typically has more antioxidants in it, and it'll typically have a little bit more fiber as well. Try to combine it with a fruit. You can also have it in small amounts in like a trail mix or granola bars, but again, watch the sugar content with the granola bars. Sweets, you can have yogurt with fruit, frozen Greek yogurt, fruit ice cream. What I mean by that is, and a lot of you have seen this by now, you can blend up bananas and just freeze it, and that's kind of like your ice cream. It's just bananas and, I don't know, you can put some almond milk in there to make it like that creamy texture. So you can have something like that. Dried fruit, just again, portion control with dried fruit because it's higher concentrations of sugar than fruit how it normally is. Salt, other than kale chips, which you can do, but you can also do like low-fat popcorn sprinkled with herbs. Does anybody else have any recommendations for salty type snacks that would be healthy?
Vinegar.
What is it?
Anything that's like a vinegar side to it.
Oh, okay.
Dry vinegar is that.
Okay, what do you
Vinegar
typically?
has that same sensation as salt.
Okay, so he's saying vinegar kind of gets that same sensation. What do you usually put the vinegar on?
Powdered vinegar.
Oh, and like sprinkle it on stuff? Oh, that's a good idea.
Balsamic vinaigrette, right? That's low sodium.
Yeah.
It's pretty easy to do on vegetables or just sitting there with carrots or something.
Okay, that's a great idea. I wouldn't have thought of that. Yeah.
I don't have a salt suggestion, but I'm wondering, under the sweets, agave syrup, is that a better option than some of the sugar substitutes?
Not necessarily. It's still, now we're going to get into the fructose thing, but it's still highly concentrated in fructose. No matter if it's honey or syrup or agave, it's still considered an added sugar. And yes, there are some other health components to things like agave and honey and pure maple syrup. So I guess I prefer that you use those over like a regular table sugar. But still keep in mind that just because those things have some health benefits doesn't mean that we can go crazy with them too. Because it's still an added sugar, right? It's still been processed in some way, shape, or form. It's not in its natural state.
Go ahead.
Okay. All right, other tips for management. We talked about that inner dialogue, asking yourself, how am I feeling right now? What would I do if this food was not available? Practicing mindful eating, again, paying attention to the taste, the aroma, the sight, making sure that distractions are removed. Identify what's missing in your life. Can you recover that, or can you find a better way to cope with it? Plan activities that are not involving food. We're very much a food-centered society, and especially around the holidays, right? I mean, everything is about the food, which is great. I'm not saying we shouldn't enjoy food, but let's try to not make everything about the food, right? So, maybe you have your big dinner for Christmas, but then you decide to go sledding with the kids, or we talked about, using the Wii, or, reading a book, or, doing something a little bit more productive than just eating and drinking cocktails the rest of the night. Preparation is also key, right? Being prepared for things. So for instance, a great way to cope with cravings, if you have a busy work schedule, having snacks planned, having snacks available at work that you can reach for when you know you're going to go a long time between meals, that can help stave off cravings. Prioritize. If you've got a lot on your plate, sit down and prioritize it. This needs to get done first. This can get done whenever. Again, think about if distractions would be helpful for you. Can you go for a walk versus going for the piece of chocolate cake? And then, of course, physical activity. It's got to be part of your plan. Other ideas for management, social support. And I heard some of you talking about that before we got started. The wonderful thing about Biggest Loser, for those of you who are doing the Biggest Loser, is that hopefully you are forming friendships and you do have support systems set up. So lean on each other. Pre-portion your comfort foods. If you're just having one of those days, you know what, I just want mac and cheese, it's happening. So, so pre-portion it out, right? Rather than sitting down with a big bowl of it, you know, you have a small serving of it and savor it. Think of healthier alternatives, right? Sleep. I know this is, again, for some of you, it's just, you know, it's very hard to get sleep. Some of you might have young children, or some of you are just stressed, or you have crazy schedules or whatever. But I mean, try to think of ways to work it in there. You know, if you're a third shifter, if you can try to get a hour nap somewhere in there in the middle of the day, I don't know. I mean, really think about this, because sleep is a big factor with stress and appetite hormones. It has so much to do with weight management. Balancing your meals, making sure that you're having a protein at your meals, making sure that you're having a good complex carbohydrate at your meals, making sure that you've got fruit and vegetable, right? When we have those imbalances, this happens to our blood sugars, and then we've got cravings and all that bad stuff. And then removing temptations. This is another one. You know, if you know you can't leave the chocolate cake alone, don't have it in the house. Make sure you have to make a specific trip to go get the chocolate cake, because then that's that extra step, like, do I really want to go out and get this? And maybe you do, but then you have to think about it. Okay, versus if it's right on the countertop, you don't have to think about it, you're there. Healthier comfort food ideas. You can do plain oatmeal flavored with pumpkin or banana to sweeten it up versus getting the flavored stuff. Baked beans with pure maple syrup. Again, watch how much syrup you're putting in there, right? Because it's still an added sugar. Pancakes with Greek yogurt and peanut butter to increase the protein content. So again, because pancakes by themselves are pretty much just carbs. You put some protein in there, a little better for your blood sugars. Baked apples versus apple pie. Banana ice cream, like I talked about, blending up the ice cream with, or blending up the banana with some almond milk. And you can sprinkle it with some nuts and some dark chocolate chips. Make your brownies with black beans. That may sound very unappealing, and again, I am a chocolate connoisseur, but I've had brownies with black beans and avocado, and it's actually really good.
Good with beets as well.
Oh, I've never tried it with beets. I suppose, because they're a little more sweet. Oatmeal chocolate chip cookies with cinnamon. Again, cinnamon tends to enhance sweetness, so that's the thought there. And cinnamon's also good for your blood sugars. Baked veggie mac and cheese, so sneak some vegetables in there. Mashed potatoes with cauliflower, spaghetti with zucchini noodles, cauliflower crust pizza. Trainer Brittany's really good, she's got some recipes for that. Chili with unsweetened cocoa powder. Chicken with dumplings made from whole wheat. Grilled sharp cheddar cheese on rye with avocado, spinach, and tomato. This is like grilled cheese season for me, so that's a good one. Sharp cheddar, the idea with sharp cheddar is it's got more flavor, so it's going to pack a little bit more punch. You'll be able to get away with a smaller serving.
And if you shred it, rather than just cutting off a big slice, you can get away with a lot less.
Ah, that's an idea. She was saying if you shred it versus just having a big slice, you might be able to get away with it. Less is more. All right, the 5 Ds. So if you're not willing to ask yourself all those questions, the inner dialogue that I discussed, the 5 Ds are also a nice way to cope. So delay. Oh, yeah.
Is there a certain rye bread? Is rye bread more high in calories?
Dark rye is typically a little bit better glycemic index-wise, so it's not going to create such a shoot in your blood sugars. So yeah, like a dark rye would be a little bit better than a white bread. Or you can do whole wheat bread, that's fine too. Yeah, let's break if anybody needs to go quick.
Sorry, I gotta get my kid to school. With this challenge sheet, or just like a homework?
Yeah, it's if you want to do it.
Okay.
Yep.
Sounds good. Thank you.
I'm just gonna take a drink because my throat is very dry probably. Okay, so the first D is delay. You know, if you're experiencing craving or if you're going through emotional eating or whatever, wait 10 minutes. Just, I don't know, a lot can happen in 10 minutes. Maybe you get distracted with something else and then the craving is gone and it's like, oh, I didn't eat it. I really didn't need to do that. Wait 10 minutes and just see. And especially too, if you just had a meal, it takes 20 minutes for your brain to tell your stomach that it's full. I mean, if you've just had a meal, wait 10 to 20 minutes and just see, do I really need more? Again, distract yourself. You know, can you go do something else when you're experiencing this? Distance yourself. Again, don't have the chocolate cake on the counter. You know, leave it at the store, or if it's in the house, put it behind a cupboard so you can't see it. That's why we want you guys to have fruit bowls on the counter, because if you see it, you're more willing to grab it, I hope. Determine if you really need it at that time. And again, maybe you decide, yes, I do, but really think about, and that might be where you have that inner dialogue. And then decide. So decide when to stop. Am I going to have 2 pieces of cake? Am I going to have the whole cake? Am I going to have just a small portion, a little sliver? Decide how much you're going to have. Again, the idea with the 5 Ds and the inner dialogue is just to stop for a second and think about the choice you're making versus just reacting. And then always I like to leave on the note that a healthy lifestyle is rewarding and fun. It might seem, and some days it is, I'm sure, you know, very challenging, very off-putting. You guys are getting almost halfway into the program now, so I realize things might start getting tough. But this is, you're doing something for yourself. And maybe, you know what, if you're not doing something for yourself, hopefully you're doing it for your family or your spouse or somebody. And then maybe you'll realize down the road that it was for yourself too. So, questions? Yeah.
You were talking about the complex carbs. Just, can you give a few examples? It's been a long time since I've thought about that. The difference between complex and is it simple carbs?
Yeah. So complex carbs would be things that haven't been stripped of their fiber. So things like whole wheat breads versus white breads, whole wheat noodles or whole wheat pasta versus white pastas. Quinoa is a good one. Oatmeal, yeah, that's a good one. Preferably the steel cut oats, but again, I do realize that some of you do the little packages, which is okay. What else? Oh, brown rice versus white rice. So things like that would be complex carbs.
The steel cut, we kind of found out, we do it overnight. And the other thing is, we always kind of make it, my husband gets crazy and makes a big batch of it. So we just put it in the refrigerator, and then you can take out a scoop and heat it in the microwave, so you're still getting, you only have to spend once, maybe for 3 or 4 days, making the original.
So, and actually, I mean, and I should really heed my advice here, because I do the minute packets. So, but actually that would kind of save you time in the long run, because you can do it in the slow cooker too, right?
Yep.
And it tastes okay reheated?
Yep.
Okay.
As long as you don't cook it down, you know, I mean, make it too
dry.
Too dry.
Sure, okay, so yeah, making sure that it stays, it retains its moisture.
But you can always like, I mean, if you're reheating it, you can like reheat it with like some, like skim milk or something. And
Yeah, you could add some fluid in there. Other questions or ideas that you want to share? Yeah.
What I used to do Weight Watchers, they said that whenever you eat, you will yawn, or you'll, or what is it called? I forget what it is now. I just have it in my head. But there's something. Oh, you'll sigh. So every time you eat, when you're full and your body thinks you're full, you will sigh.
Oh.
And sometimes I choose to listen to it, and sometimes I don't. I don't know. But you will every single time you eat.
Yeah, I bet.
I'm a fast eater, and you will, and you're like, and I'm like, no, don't sigh yet. This is really if you listen to that, you stop there, then that's as much as your body. If your body's telling you you need it without you, so if you just be aware of that, you will sigh every time.
So she was talking about a trick that she learned when your body is satisfied or
your body is not you, but your
Okay, so when your body is satisfied, it will sigh. You will sigh. So that's your red flag that it's time to cut it off. Yes. So that's a good one. I've never heard of that.
Like sometimes when places still has food on it, and I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
It's not easy.
That's interesting.
Yeah, that's a good. Again, your body is telling you. You got to listen to your body. That's the thing. We don't listen to our bodies.
My friend taught me this one. If you go out to eat, get a to-go container right away and put half of it in there.
Yep.
It's amazing how much food you get.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Well, and the thing is, too, if you don't get it pre-packaged, half of it, what happens is, even if you have the best intentions to just eat half of it, if you're still sitting there talking, what do? Oh, I'll just have another bite. Just have another bite, and then it's gone or almost all gone. Yeah.
One of the things I saw from a person who was successful at weight loss was after 3 bites, your body doesn't really recognize the taste, like if they're one right after the other. So like for desserts, if you just cut off whatever portion you feel you can deal with and make it a little bit more than 3 bites, you get that sensation that, oh, I've had a lot, rather than, it doesn't really matter how big the spoonfuls are, it's the fact that it's a taste that you're getting.
Yeah, that reminds me of years back, this French woman came up with, have you guys heard of that? I think she calls it French women don't get fat. But that was kind of her premise. She talks about how a lot of French women will eat really decadent foods, but they'll only have, and I'm pretty sure she said 3 bites, and then they cut it off. But part of that too is also mindful eating, that they really pay attention to what they're eating and they savor what they're eating, and then they're done and they're good.
And you can't have, I just cannot have that stuff in the house. That's one of the, it's the go-to foods, the crackers in the box, or the, the chocolate or candy. I don't even love chocolate, but if I'm having one of those emotional times, I could never have a bag of chocolate chips in the house. We just don't have it. And so what I do is maybe once a week I buy a dessert that is 1 portion, and then I take like 1/3 of it and the rest my husband eats. So we just don't have it in the house.
There you go.
Yeah. Well, he doesn't need to lose weight. So, it's just one of those things. I just cannot have that stuff around, because if I do,
It's gone.
it's not a good thing. And I'll eat things that I don't even like. That's what's weird about it, is that when you have emotional eating, sometimes you're eating things that you're like, I make this, I don't even like this.
Yeah. Yep. Yes.
I had an accident and had a plastic surgery on my lip, knocked my teeth out, and I couldn't eat for several weeks. I couldn't chew, and I just found that if I don't have enough protein, it was hard to get protein.
Yeah.
So I found that, and even now I can chew better, but if I don't get enough protein, that's when I crave this stuff. So I don't know if you found that with people, that if they're keeping track in MyFitnessPal or whatever, but if you're not getting enough protein, that's when you tend to.
And
Yes,
how much is the recommended amount of protein per day?
It depends on you. I would not go any lower than about 56 grams per person, but everybody's needs are slightly different. Some of you may need more than that. In fact, probably a lot of you do need more than that. But definitely do not go below about 56 grams per day. Going back to the protein thing, yes, and that goes back to that whole, if you have carbs by themselves, your blood sugar is doing this thing. Protein takes longer to digest and break down. So if you have carbs and protein together, your blood sugar is doing something more like this. That you want. You don't want this whole thing. So yeah, you're right. If you're having, you can have, this is where, I think Weight Watchers has gotten better now. But you could blow your whole, if you're on 1,200 calories a day, let's just say, you could blow all your calories on, on breads. 1,200 calories of breads if you wanted to, and theoretically you would still lose weight, but you're not going to feel. The feeling is much different. Your muscles won't benefit. So if you're in here kicking your butt, working out, your muscles aren't going to benefit. And then eventually you will hit a wall where it's like you can't drop the weight. So yes, making sure that you're having protein at all of your meals, probably even a little bit at your snacks, will help too.
What are some proteins that aren't meats?
You could do beans. You could do nut butters or nuts or seeds. You could do eggs, although that's kind of a
Hard boiled though, if you keep them.
Yeah, you can do dairy, but again, that's kind of, it depends if you're vegan or if you just.
I meat.
Okay.
Today.
Laugh.
I don't know, it
Okay.
just seems to be like, some of it's the chewing, like sometimes you like crave something to chew, but half the time it's like if I have to eat something, I don't want to chew.
But like trail mix, like fruit and nuts.
Yeah, the nuts will give you some protein. Yeah, you can do protein powders if you want. Make sure that you're talking, if you're not talking to a dietitian, you know, talk to your trainer too, because not all of them are created equal. There's a ton out there. Yes, Greek yogurt is great. It's better in terms of protein than a regular yogurt.
It's like also like on the go. It's, you know, if you have to have a snack and you're between meetings and you have 5 minutes, you're not going to sit there and try and either eat a whole chicken breast or go heat it up.
Sure.
It's like, what can I do?
You could have like almonds and one of those, I've been using those little school box lunch raisins, you know, because they taste kind of like candy.
Yeah.
And yet if you have a single portion of them, they're not too bad on calories.
Yeah, yeah, hummus is good too, and yeah, like a trail mix.
So now what about it's holiday time and you got a room full of all your favorite foods? That's the hard part.
So
Christmas parties.
yeah, so and string cheese was another one, cottage cheese.
Yeah.
Those are relatively quick. But okay, so she was bringing up now with holidays. It's a slew of foods that I mean, it's just a table full of foods that you really love all of them. You know, what I would recommend is scan over the table first, scan over the spread first, and find out just exactly what it is you really want to enjoy that day. Look for the foods that you don't typically, you can't really, I shouldn't say can't, but that you don't typically have on a typical day. So if it's like chocolate chip cookies and you're like, I can have that any day of the week, I'd rather have the, I don't know, apple pie because this is the only time of year I typically have it. You know what I'm saying with that? So try to pick out foods that you don't typically have on a daily or a regular basis. Or if it's your just absolute favorite dessert, maybe it is chocolate chip cookies, then that's the one that you focus on and you skip over the rest. Other ideas for that? I mean, obviously portion control is important too, yes?
I had a staff Christmas party last night and I had to weigh in today. So it was like, oh boy. But I just kept saying out loud when people would be like, oh, you're drinking water. I'm like, yep, I have to weigh in tomorrow. You know, yep, I have to weigh in tomorrow. And then they'd ask me, how's that going? Oh, it's going pretty good, you know, and then we talk about it, you know. And so I just kept saying it out loud because I really wanted to snack because it was over dinner time and I was like, okay, I need to eat, but I don't want to eat what's here. So, you know, I picked one or two things, very, very small snacks that I really wanted to try. And then on my way home, or when I got home, I made a healthy dinner and ate at home.
Yeah, and you know, and like you said too, portion control. If it's something you really want to enjoy, you know, take a small portion of it, savor it, and then, you know, move on.
I'm finding now, especially since I've gotten back into this, is I had a coworker before we even started the program begged me to make her from scratch a chocolate Guinness cake. So I made her the cake, and I had it in the house for 2 days. And all it took was going online, looking up the nutritional facts that there were 12 servings in this cake, and that each serving was 550 calories. I saw the fat content, I saw everything else, and I was like, yeah, I'm not eating that. I think visually seeing the impact of it just made it like so disinteresting. I was no longer even interested in it at all.
Yeah, that works well for Cheesecake Factory cheesecake.
Once you see the numbers, there's no,
Yeah, I love cheesecake, and that ruined my day.
Because we had that in the fridge for 2 days, and I'm like, eh.
Yeah. So having a little bit of knowledge can be power, right?
With the portion control, my parents both lost a lot of weight just switching from a dinner-sized plate to a salad plate. That's all they did. And the plate was still full, so it was like a mind trick. That helped them a lot.
Yeah, I mean, we tend to want to fill up negative space, right, on our plate, or it looks like we're getting gypped, or we're just not getting enough, or whatever. So yeah, using the smaller plates and employing the one plate rule too when you're at Christmas parties or New Year's parties or whatever. You know, making sure that you're not going up for seconds and thirds and whatever.
It can only be one level.
Yes, yes, stack. And also, you know, making sure that you eat a balanced meal, making sure that you eat the stuff you're supposed to be eating first, and then if you do have some room, you can enjoy, you know, that favorite dish or whatever in a small quantity.
If we have a buffet, we do have, most of our family members are pretty good on bringing some good foods, but we have a lot of the others. So what I do is I go up and I fill my plate first, half with salad. That way, at least, I know I'm going to get to chew a lot. And then, by eating that much salad, I'm not quite as, you know, hungry for the other stuff as well.
Yeah, so she was just saying too, you can fill up half of your plate with salad immediately, and then, you know, fill up the rest of your plates, or, yep. Okay, if you guys could at least push your chairs towards the back, because I gotta put them all away, that would be very helpful. All right, have a great weekend.
It could be a workout. Yeah, we get this.